Which do you think is more likely to hurt you? A car crash or a relationship? It's got to be a car crash, right? I mean, that's why we have stop signs, airbags, and driver's education. We don't exactly have relationship education. But it turns out that in the US, car crashes cause around 3 million injuries per year, while relationship abuse causes 10 million injuries per year. And that's not even including the lesser known forms of abuse that I'm here to talk about today. The lasting damage done by emotional abuse, digital abuse, and isolation tactics. Now, I'm not saying you should have to practice dating the same way you practice driving with 60 hours of excruciating parental supervision. That would be a nightmare. But I am saying we need a huge cultural shift to address relationship safety as seriously as we address driving safety, by incorporating it into our classrooms, our job training, and our legislation. The reason we treat these two safety issues so differently right now is that cars crash in public, so we all know what dangerous driving looks like. But relationships crash in private, so we don't know the signs until we're already trapped. Hi, my name's Adam Joel. I'm a survivor of relationship abuse, but I'm also a filmmaker. So this is my story of how I transformed the most painful period in my life into a full-fledged sci-fi movie about relationship abuse and an international impact campaign about relationship safety. My approach as a filmmaker is to show you a combination of movie examples and real stories, to show you the lesser-known forms of abuse so you can learn to spot the signs and pump the brakes before a relationship turns violent. Let's start with my story. I fell in love in high school. It was a lot like High School Musical, actually. We supported each other at sporting events. We swapped little homemade gifts in the hallway. It was exciting at first. I was 100% sure I was going to marry my high school sweetheart. So when she started to get jealous of any person, place, or passion that brought me joy or took up my time, I didn't give up right away, because I felt it was my job to stand by her side no matter what. When she started giving me the silent treatment for hours on end, acting like I didn't even exist until she got what she wanted, guilt-tripping me for leaving or screaming at me for staying, I didn't give up, because every rom-com told me it was my job to transform myself into someone who could make her happy, no matter what. For years, I didn't tell anyone about the bad parts of this relationship. I didn't tell my female friends that I was blocking them on my phone to avoid her rage and insecurities. I didn't tell my family that I was pretending to be sick to cancel my plans when she was upset. I didn't even realize myself that I was being manipulated into shrinking my world around her. After a few years of that and a long, messy breakup, I finally opened up to my parents for the first time. And my mom immediately said, "That's emotional abuse." And hot tears just exploded from my face in a way I've never experienced before. Because at this point in my life, I'd never even heard the phrase emotional abuse. But right away, I knew that's exactly what I had experienced for the past 4 years. At first, I was frustrated with myself for not spotting the signs sooner. But then, I had a conversation with a fellow survivor that totally changed my perspective. My friend Amanda said this: "I didn't recognize the abuse in my own relationship until it matched what abuse looked like in the movies. And by then, it was worst case scenario. I was getting hit in the face while holding my child." When she said that, as a fellow survivor, I had a wave of empathy for her. But as a filmmaker, I was furious. If these Hollywood movies had the power to help Amanda recognize the abuse in her own relationship, why didn't they help her sooner? Why did the abuse in the movies only match her experience after 10 years of escalation and suffering? As I started talking with dozens of other survivors and experts, I found almost every single one of us said the same exact thing. I didn't recognize the early signs of abuse until I saw them in hindsight. I don't know about you, but to me that feels incredibly backwards. There's a huge gap in our education system around relationship safety. Think back. Who taught you what abuse looks like? Your parents? Your school? Raise your hand if anyone gave you a comprehensive relationship safety talk about all the forms of abuse before you started dating. Anyone? Not seeing many hands, maybe like half a hand up. I used to blame myself for not spotting the signs, but no one taught us about this. And abusive people don't exactly announce that on their dating profile. 5'11", loves pizza, abusive. No. Abuse builds up gradually like a slow drip. That's why it's so hard to spot. That's why we need to start having really direct conversations about abuse prevention with young people. Because when we protect kids from tough conversations, we expose them to dangerous situations. So in case no one said it to you yet, I'll be the first to say that emotional abuse counts. So does digital abuse, isolation tactics, withholding affection, damaging property, threatening self-harm, sexual abuse even within a relationship, stalking, and more. Because of this gap in our education system, a lot of us look to the movies to learn about relationships. Raise your hand if you've seen one of these classic love stories. Beauty and the Beast, Twilight, Romeo and Juliet. Now we're seeing a lot more hands. Unfortunately, these so-called love stories are actually about kidnapping, monsters, and teenage suicide. Not exactly role models when it comes to romance. So when my friend Amanda said I didn't recognize the abuse in my relationship until it matched what counted as abuse in the movies, I thought, what if there was a different type of abuse movie? One where no one gets hit. One that calls out the lesser-known forms of coercive control that build up gradually, like a slow drip. I'm proud to say that I have now made the abuse prevention movie that I wish I had when I was younger. It's called The Last Drop, a sci-fi film about relationship abuse inspired by the memories of survivors like me. The story follows a young woman named Sophia and her boyfriend Anthony, using this memory machine that lets couples relive shared memories. It's romantic at first. They get to relive their meet cute, their first date, but it takes a dark turn when he starts trying to manipulate her memories in his favor. We use this memory machine in the movie to showcase what live gaslighting feels like. A glitch between his version of reality and her version, the real version. And I didn't make this movie alone. I partnered with dozens of other survivors and leading experts to maximize the impact of this project and to turn my pain into purpose. And the world has been responding. I've now booked film screenings and speaking engagements everywhere from Hawaii to Australia. I even spent Valentine's Day teaching an abuse prevention workshop to the Chicago Police Department. And it's so important that we get this message out there to young people as early as we can. The whole time I've been on the road with this project, I've been honing my message into 10 memorable tips. So let's do it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to bust 10 toxic relationship myths that we often learn from movies and TV shows. And I'm going to replace them with 10 relationship lessons that we can use to make our love stories healthier. Myth number 1, they should whisk you away. Careful, isolation looks a lot like intimacy at first. We're used to seeing princesses carried off to distant lands, or the Little Mermaid, who gave up her whole world for a handsome stranger with legs. But healthy relationships include the other people you care about. Watch out for isolation tactics. It's a classic form of abuse designed to create distance and distrust between you and the people who care about you. Myth number 2, love is all about sacrifice. No, sacrifice is not a love language. I thought it was. That's why I was willing to give up so many friendships, so much quality family time. That's why I almost gave up on coming to film school in the first place for her. But sacrifice is not a love language. It's a self-destructive habit you develop when your partner punishes you for connecting with community and rewards you for isolating yourself. Myth number 3, persistence is sexy. This one is just 50 shades of gross. A lot of movies and TV shows promote this idea that it's all about wearing someone down until they eventually give in. But in real life, no means no. According to Planned Parenthood, real consent has got to be fries. Freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. Even if you're in a long-term relationship, that does not imply permanent consent because there is no such thing. Myth number 4, jealousy is romantic. That's just BS. Trust is romantic. This is especially important for men. If you see yourself as a protective partner, you have to acknowledge the statistical reality that the biggest threat to your loved ones is you. Myth number 5, love is like a roller coaster. To me, that sounds awful. The average roller coaster is less than 2 minutes, and there's a reason for that. My co-producer, Sydney Bauer, once said that if your relationship has the extreme ups and downs of a roller coaster that never ends, even the biggest thrill seeker is bound to get sick eventually. Healthy relationships don't feel scary. There are better relationships out there for you where you can experience those high highs of being in love without the lows being so devastating, I promise. Myth number 6, love makes people do crazy things. Our favorite Hollywood love stories always have these huge, over-the-top romantic gestures that would be super overwhelming in real life, like when Noah in The Notebook dangles himself from a Ferris wheel just for a date, or when Jim from The Office buys a whole house without consulting his wife. Don't worry, I'm not saying Jim is abusive, but I am saying, don't you think Pam should get a say in where she lives? There's a fine line between surprising someone you care about and cutting them out of important decisions. Healthy relationships prioritize comfort over intensity. Myth number 7, abuse is when a man hits a woman. I've got multiple issues with this one. First off, anyone can be abusive, and anyone can be abused. As a male survivor, I'm a living example of that. Second, there are many forms of abuse. Anything that's core to your identity can create a vulnerability to target in the eyes of an abusive partner. Whether it's your job, your health issues, your immigration status, your sexuality, or just your hobbies. Abuse is customized. Think of it this way. A thief takes something that's valuable to everyone. An abuser takes something that's valuable specifically to you. Myth number 8, nobody understands our love. We see this idea romanticized by stories like Romeo and Juliet, but I saw it weaponized in my past relationship. My ex was always in my ear saying things like, your family's different than my family. They wouldn't understand, they don't get it. So when my family tried to check in on me, I would actually parrot my ex's words to defend her. I would say things like, you don't understand, Mom, you don't get it. I thought I was in this complex love story that no one around me could comprehend. But actually, I was just experiencing psychological abuse. If someone you know is experiencing that, they may actually defend their abusive partner's behavior and resist your help. So please be very patient with them. And if you're recognizing these signs of abuse in your friend, your partner, or in yourself, you should know there are 3 paths to help: friends, family, and professionals. And there are people out there who will understand. Myth number 9, when you love someone, you stay with them forever, no matter what. I thought this was romantic when I was younger, but now I know that love can exist even in the most toxic, abusive relationships. My ex and I used to say together forever, no matter what. And I should have read the fine print there, because she was taking advantage of the hopeless romantic in me. That's not a happily ever after. That's a trap. And if you're in that kind of trap, you may have to multitask to get out. For me, it was about loving and leaving. Despite what every rom-com tells you, you may have to leave someone while you still love them. Because the truth is, abusive people are magnetic. Love is one of the many magnets they use to pull you back in, just like custody, fear, and financial control. And you can't control who you love, but you can control who you leave. That being said, leaving is actually the most dangerous part of an abusive relationship. So you should know there are support services out there that can give you a breakup safety plan, that can help you coordinate everything you need to regain your independence without your partner knowing. And if you're struggling right now with an abusive situation, or you're just scared in your relationship, and you might be feeling some shame about that, I want you to know I understand that shame, I felt that. But I wish I knew this. First off, abuse is always the abuser's fault. But also, fight and flight are not the only survival instincts. There's also freeze and appease. Just like with any threat found in nature, sometimes the safest, smartest option is to freeze or appease your abuser. So don't be ashamed, because survivors like you are the strongest people I know, and peacekeeping is a valid survival instinct. Myth number 10, all couples fight. In my current relationship, the healthy one, we don't really fight. We make mistakes, we get upset, we have bad moods, but we never yell, we don't slam doors, we don't throw things. We don't rehash old arguments for the heck of it or try to punish each other in the future, and we never, ever get physical. We ask for space when we need it, and then we come together and try to understand each other a little bit better. So my advice to not fight with your partner is to talk during the good times. It's really hard to have your best problem-solving brain on when you already feel tired, frustrated, and misunderstood. So when there's nothing going on, don't wait for a crisis. Talk during the good times. That was a lot. If you feel like 10 tips is too many to memorize, just leave with this one mnemonic device for a quick relationship safety check-in. It goes like this. Say it with me real quick. Phone, wallet, keys. We'll try that one more time. Phone, wallet, keys. Thank you. My phone represents my people. Is anyone controlling my access to my people? My wallet represents my choices. Are my choices being supervised or supported? That includes my financial choices, but also my identity, because my ID's in here too. And lastly, my keys. My keys represent my freedom. Do I feel free to come and go without being monitored or manipulated? Phone, wallet, keys. My people, my choices, my freedom. These 3 essentials in your pocket also represent 3 essentials in your relationship. So now it's your turn. This relationship safety talk is meant to be the first of many. Use this as an excuse to reach out to the people in your life. Because by the time they're age 14 to 20, 1 in 3 Americans have already experienced dating abuse. So I promise it's never too early to start this conversation. Together, we can improve our love stories on screen and in real life. But we can't do it alone, because abusive people benefit from us treating this as a private individual issue. But I'm here making my story very public because I see abuse as a community issue that requires communal solutions. I'm here because I believe we can turn our past pain and our past mistakes into relationship safety talks for the next generation. But I need your help. So I'm calling on all the best educators, community leaders, legislators, parents, fierce friends, and more. The people in your life need relationship safety talks with people like you. Abuse thrives in silence. Let's talk about it. Thanks so much.